Yeah, welcome into the Friday edition of Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063 The Game, brought to you by Chuck McDowell and Medical House Calls, Middle Tennessee's best medical care in the comfort and safety of your own home. For more information, go to medicalhousecalls.com. Medical House Calls, where the nearest clinic is your home. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on a rainy Friday morning here in Nashville, Tennessee. Joe, good morning. How are you?
Fine. Stayed out of the rain. Geezer, how about you?
I'm good. Can't complain. Lots of old friends are in town for this basketball tournament, eh?
I've seen that. Elijah Campbell in town with that
Yes.
flowing locks covering the South Carolina Gamecocks. Michelle Perry in town this weekend as well, along with half of the state of Kentucky. So, lot of Wildcats out there, Joe. A lot of blue walking around.
A lot of blue walk around, no doubt. Definitely saw that yesterday. They got in early to, really, plant those roots and get ready for a Friday night game. So, uh, hey, come on in, spend the money. You saved all year for this. Come on in and spend the money, and be ready for the magical mystery tour with the Wildcats. And Elijah Campbell still has the elite flow, no doubt about it.
And
Yep,
more
he
hits
does.
on Paul Feinbaum, too, Joe.
Yeah,
What's that?
we got a TV celebrity with us, Rexrode on Feinbaum yesterday.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we haven't gotten the numbers yet, but I assume Rich Deitch will report later today on Twitter that his ratings had a crazy spike at 4:30 yesterday. So
Yeah.
that'll be my expectation.
Did he call you Rexrode? Did Feinbaum nail the name, or how'd that go?
No, I'm Joe Rexrode to him. In fact, I considered this for the ramp. Since you brought it up, I'll do something else. But yes, Paul, I like Paul a lot. Great guy, has a heck of a show, a legend here in these parts, and he's got me as Joe Rexrod. It's fine, it's fine.
Did the Hilltopper that
man.
was with you on the air, did he call you Rex Rod as well?
He did not. Is that your buddy?
Yeah, Matt Stahl.
Yeah, Matt. Yeah, I should have asked. I should have thought about that. We were talking, and he told me he went to WKU. He didn't address me by my last name, but now he probably thinks, "Hey, what's up, Joe Rexrod? Good to see you, buddy." Next time he sees me. So Paul Feinbaum is making my life difficult. But no, look, it's just like any teacher. Most of the first days of school of my life, I had to correct Rexrod to Rexrode. And these, these are school teachers who, there's an E on the end, so it should be a long vowel. But hey, man, things happen. The English language is weird.
Cody on the text line says, Joe Rexrod, WTF, Paul Feinbaum. Oh, you could go the other way. Go find bum to him.
Ooh, man. Oh, wow.
That'd be disrespectful. Can't do that to
Yeah.
Paul.
Yeah, Paul's, he's a nice guy. I think at one point he was like, you, I don't know if it's recorded or not here, but like he said something like, well, you've been here in media and the local paper and various other exciting adventures or something like that. I was like, what are you talking about right now, Paul?
He's a regular listener to the Robby and Rexrode program, clearly.
That
Various
might
other
be.
exciting adventures. There's no question.
I think so. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that was fun. And today we've got we got the good stuff on the court gets going today.
Good stuff on the court gets going, and we'll see how the Vols handle their matchup today. We'll get into that coming up here in just a few minutes. We got a lot to get to on the program. Jared Stillman will join us at 7 o'clock. TD coming up at 8. Teron Davenport. We'll get into what the Titans have done in free agency with him. Joe, we begin with Vanderbilt and Jerry Stackhouse. Jerry Stackhouse is out as Vanderbilt's head coach. Not that that is some big surprise after the way that this season has gone down, but after 5 years, it is official, and Vanderbilt will be moving in a different direction and will be hiring another men's basketball coach. What did you make of? I thought, and there was more reaction to it yesterday when we got off the air, I saw from Vanderbilt fans, like a reflective Jerry Stackhouse in his press conference the other night after they were eliminated in the SEC tournament. And then, of course, yesterday, the move officially being made. But what did you make of this move? The fact that it's actually done, because I know there were some Vanderbilt fans that didn't believe it was going to happen. And now where Vanderbilt goes from here with Jerry Stackhouse out as head coach.
Yeah, well, first of all, it's technically a mutual parting ways, which is interesting.
Correct.
So, so, of course, one thing I thought on that was like, does that mean that there's some reduction in the buyout? And of course, that would be his decision. Frankly, I mean, I would hope not. I mean, if I'm him, take every last cent. He actually had a quote he gave me a few years ago. It was like, basically like, I will take every cent or whatever. But again, as he should, as anybody should. But yeah, I mean, I suppose it could just be read as very simply, he looked at the situation and said, and if you really can and step outside of yourself a little bit as a coach in that situation, there's no way it's easy. But I mean, again, I compare this a little bit to Butch Jones in 2017, where it's like once it gets so negative, it just in college sports, like you can't come back from that. Like if the fan base is totally out on a coach, is that the most important thing? I mean, could you win and do all the things you need to do with your job, independent of fan support and be successful? Yes, but it's really hard. It's really hard, especially the way, everything is discussed. Everybody can get at everybody. So maybe it is as simple as he looked at it and said, this is, it's just no one wants me here anymore. The Vanderbilt fans don't want me here anymore. So you know what? Let's just do this. But again, I mean, if I'm him, I'm also like, I want every last cent of that buyout.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
but look, it's regardless of all of it, it's the right decision. I absolutely believe, like Candace Lee, when she gave him an extension a couple years ago, it's not, I mean, it's because she really thinks he's good, and honestly, I still think, and fully that he's a good basketball coach, that he's a good developer, talent, all those things. For whatever reason, he can't recruit. For whatever reason, he maybe doesn't evaluate well enough, or maybe it's just a matter of, getting it done, the recruiting trail. Certainly some challenges at Vanderbilt, but not to the extent that, basically his classes were a bunch of 3 stars,
Yeah.
It's just like you have to do better than that. Bryce Drew did way better than that. Bryce Drew had other issues, that so people right now wishing for Bryce Drew. I mean, let's not forget what happened at the end of his tenure. It was bad. Even though it was a fast tenure. So, be interesting to see what happens with Stackhouse. I think probably NBA assistant coach is the next step, and I think he could be an NBA coach someday and be good. And Vanderbilt, I know Vanderbilt fans now are kind of conditioned to lose with this program, but I think there's a lot of things in place, including the collective, that should make this an attractive job to other coaches.
So to that point, I mean, Vanderbilt fans were throwing out all sorts of names yesterday. I'm interested to see where this search goes, who ends up being hired here by Vanderbilt, what that looks like, and what the approach is, I guess, from Candace Lee. Now, remember, she did not hire Jerry Stackhouse, so this will be her first men's basketball hire coming up when this decision is made. And I'm interested to see kind of what the approach is here. I mean, when Malcolm Turner hired Jerry Stackhouse, I mean, it was an eye-opening move, right? Like I remember the day that was announced, thinking, "Oh, Jerry Stackhouse is coming to Vanderbilt," and the star power that came with that, and he had obviously, people were talking about him one day, very shortly after that, maybe being a future head coach at North Carolina, going back to his alma mater, and obviously it didn't work out in Vanderbilt. So I'm interested to see what the approach is from Vanderbilt. Is that hiring from a lower level already in college basketball? Do you go another NBA assistant route? Like, what's the next step for Vanderbilt, and what's the approach from Candace Story Lee is going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that they'll use a search firm. Basically, every hire does now. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know what Malcolm Turner did. I mean, I think that he coveted Jerry Stackhouse. Both North Carolina guys, but Jerry I think he had just won like G League Coach of the Year. It was an outside the box hire. Malcolm Turner was an outside the box hire. It was an outside the box hire making an outside the box hire. What you see a lot. Well, not just in college sports. I was going to say what you see a lot in college sports. I mean, you see it like in the NFL too. It's like whatever the last coach was, and then it got bad. Then you're going to do the other thing. I think Vanderbilt is absolutely going to go the traditional route, which is what you should do. Look, the NBA coach thing in college basketball has not gone well, repeatedly now. And I just think that now, granted, the college game has changed so much. I was going to say, I keep saying what I was going to say. I was going to say, you need someone who's in college, who's been there for a long time, who knows the lay of the land, who knows how you build a program, recruiting, all that stuff. I mean, a lot of this stuff is brand new for people the last few years, right?
Yeah.
So, but I still feel like being in college athletics is for a long time is still a benefit. And there's still a lot about building a program that it helps to have done it in college athletics. So I think look, the obvious name, Chris Mack, his daughter's playing volleyball at Vanderbilt. She's gonna be on that volleyball program when it gets started, I believe, next year. Um, that's not a reason to hire someone, but that's a guy who has had high level success, didn't go well at Louisville, some questions there for sure, but he's kind of an obvious possibility. But there's a lot of good mid-major coaches out there. There always are. I mean, look at even the SEC now, LSU and Florida. I mean, there's always, and Mississippi State, good mid-major coaches, or if not mid-major, not Power Five coaches who, are worth pursuing. And I think there's a lot of good possibilities for Vanderbilt.
Hey, Will Wade's out there. Could really spice this thing up, get fun, and we get some wiretaps here on the program. Be nice.
Hey, let me tell you something. You joke, but that dude went to McNeese State, and like in a year, they're in the
I
NCAA
know.
tournament for the first time in forever. Like, I mean, I don't think that it would happen because like there's still like because of all the stuff that happened and like it's Vanderbilt. I think that would still be a deterrent. But you know what? Who cares now? I
I
don't
agree.
care. Do you get play? I mean, everybody's getting players basically the same way now.
You don't need the wire anymore.
Exactly.
You don't even have to worry about it.
Exactly. And the dude can obviously coach, and he's from Nashville. So, look, every time Vanderbilt opens, I say it and I mean it, and they should mean it. I don't know if they'll mean it seriously, but Casey Alexander should get an absolute serious look. Absolute serious look. Um, I think sometimes it hurts a coach like that to be so close to the Power Five program, right?
Yeah.
But hey, man, the guy can coach. There's no doubt. So, but there are others too. You know, the Indiana State coach,
Yeah.
Schertzer. I mean, he's done fantastic. So there's a lot of possibilities. I expect us to hear about 3 to 5, maybe a handful of these guys, and Vanderbilt to pick one of them. I think Vanderbilt will be a very attractive job for a lot of coaches.
Jerry Stackhouse out at Vanderbilt. We'll take your reaction to that. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. The Vols in action today in the SEC tournament with their matchup as well. We'll get into that and the SEC tournament and what we expect coming up this weekend at Bridgestone Arena. All that next. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Hey, Robbie Stanley here. FanDuel's putting the ball in your court for the rest of the NBA season. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets if your bet wins. We've been telling you about the Celtics all week. They won last night and destroyed the Phoenix Suns. They just look like an absolute machine right now, and they look like they're on a mission to get back to the NBA Finals. So that's who I'm going with the rest of the year. I think they're going to win the championship, but you could take it any way you want to take it. Bet on the NBA with a wide range of bet types, including quick bets, live same game parlays, player props, and a whole lot more. So visit FanDuel.com/Rob and make your first bet a layup today. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. You must be 21 or older and present in Tennessee. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Got a gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Make sure you tune in to 102.5, 106.3 The Game today and all weekend long for updates for the SEC Men's Basketball Tournament presented by ESPN Bet Sportsbook, Toyota, and Guinness. Joe, speaking of the SEC Tournament today, Tennessee kicks things off today, coming up at noon, taking on Mississippi State. South Carolina and Auburn after that. Texas A&M and Kentucky tonight at 6 o'clock. And then the nightcap, Florida and Alabama at 8:30. So a busy day at the SEC tournament over at Bridgestone Arena. Tennessee taking on Mississippi State, which actually, as you pointed out yesterday, Joe, the only SEC team that Tennessee did not beat this year. So
that's right.
Maybe some revenge on the mind for the Vols today.
Yeah, there's that. And of course, there's Mississippi State's bubble status, which is, I feel like they're in by winning yesterday. I think they're going to be okay. But, if you're them, you should know if you get this win, if you get a second win over Tennessee, that's about as good as you can get, beating a right now projected 1 seed on a neutral site, or projected 1 or 2. I guess Lenardi dumped him to the 2 again.
He's a hater.
Yeah, well, he makes to pretend like every single game changes a team seed line. Here as we get down to the end. But the committee, by the way, has laid out its 1 seeds. I'm pretty confident Tennessee's one of them, but yeah, we'll see how the weekend goes. Does not help North Carolina that Duke lost to NC State.
Yeah.
That's because that's the most valuable win you can get. However, Pittsburgh is a quad 1 win opportunity for North Carolina today, as is Mississippi State for the Vols. So Mississippi State would lock itself in. I still think they're in. And Tennessee, if they want to win, you got to win this one. You got to win this one. I think there probably is a little revenge on the mind. Look, there's 2 guys for Mississippi State who are just really difficult to deal with. Tolu Smith, big man, and he had a big game against the Vols first time, and then Josh Hubbard, the freshman, who's freshman of the year most years, but Reed Shepard and these guys at Kentucky are just ridiculous. But Josh Hubbard is a 5'10", just absolute limitless shooter who I thought he was fantastic yesterday doing everything for them. So those 2 guys, if you can contain them, then you're in pretty good shape against Mississippi State.
What do you think the key is to getting Vescovi going? We were talking to Rick Barnes about that the other day, and his message was basically, yeah, we want him to shoot. Like, we're not telling him not to shoot the ball, but it's not been, well, I mean, just the volume has not been anywhere near what it has been, which I think is good. Like, I think with the weapons they have, they don't need Vescovi shooting as much as he has been the last couple of years. I do think they've got to get more out of him offensively than they've gotten lately. And I do think there could be, a confidence issue there. What do you make of what it's going to take to get him going as tournament time is now here?
Yeah, I mean, he's shooting the lowest percentage. He went from 13-3 to 6-8 a game. He's the most direct, I guess, non-beneficiary of Dalton Connect offensively. And I hear what Rick Barnes is saying, but also that I think you need to try to intentionally get him some shots. I really do. Run some more things for him, just to get him some looks. I think sometimes he's hesitating and he's just not making when he gets a chance. But if you get 5 shots, in a game, last game, just randomly here and there, it's hard, just like we talked about. It's the goalie who sees nothing, and then then all of a sudden here it is coming at you a 2-on-1 at the end of the period. I mean, like, it's good to get some steady work. Not saying they need to make sure they get him 15 shots, but like, run a few things and try to get him going, because I've seen this before with shooters. I swear it's so often seniors too at this time of a season. And I've also seen when those shooters, if they can hit a couple, kind of get confidence. Like, the whole team knows. I mean, they all know that he's struggling and that he doesn't have a lot of confidence in his shot, which they've seen him. These guys who are veterans have seen him carry them at times with his shooting, and it's like, you cannot give him an inch or he'll kill you. I mean, that seriously has been stretches of Tennessee basketball the last 2 years. So it's hard, man. It's mental. Obviously, so much of sports is. And that's why I just think the Vols need to, like, intentionally get him shots, try to get him going a little bit. And I think that's actually a lift for the team if it can happen. It would be really good for them heading into the big tournament.
Well, if Tennessee's able to win today, they'll take on the winner of South Carolina and Auburn, which, by the way, should be a fun game. Looking forward to
Yeah.
South Carolina and Auburn a little bit later today. But I'm with you, pulling for Auburn, and then maybe a little bit more of a track meet tomorrow against Tennessee.
Yes, Auburn would be a more enjoyable game. There is no doubt about it. But I have nothing but respect for South Carolina. Nothing, their freshman big man, Colin Murray Boyles. He is, in fact, our direct guy Sam Vicini, who will slack me at the weirdest times because he lives in Australia. Um, he's been slacking me about the Stackhouse thing. He's got a first round grade on him now, and he is just tremendous. But apparently he said this week he's coming back now. You know, like Sam said on our blog, like, yeah, they get to the Sweet 16 and he's lighting it up. People can change their mind, but regardless, he's a special player. I love South Carolina, but yes, Auburn would be a much more enjoyable game. Today is going to be. I mean, today is
It'd be good.
fantastic. Yeah, just the. I mean, really, all four games. I mean, Florida-Bama. Florida-Bama is going to be a really fun game to close it out, and obviously the Cats fans can scream and squeal like like 15-year-old girls in the Beatles showed up in America in 1963 when the Cats come out tonight.
That's the one that I don't know it's going to be all that good. We'll see, but we'll see what Texas A&M brings. If
Yeah,
Kentucky
you never
shoots
know.
like they did against Tennessee, they're going to win by 35.
Yeah, I mean Texas A&M beat them. That was a while ago, and it was
They
at
did.
home. So, and Texas A&M absolutely right on that bubble too, right on that bubble. So this is a probably get in game for them if they can get it. So, those two guards can go nuts, and that's exactly what they're going to have to do. But if Kentucky, I mean, the last time we saw Kentucky play that kind of shooting, good luck to anybody.
Well, I'll take more of your thoughts on the SEC men's basketball tournament going on today at Bridgestone Arena. We'll also get into the Titans as well, including a couple of different scenarios that we briefly touched on yesterday regarding the draft that I think are very interesting for the Titans now that they've signed Calvin Ridley. We'll get into all that. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Tune in to 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Today is Vanderbilt baseball takes on Auburn at Hawkins Field with pregame at 5:45, first pitch at 6 o'clock. Coverage also available on the 102.5 The Game app and at thegamenashville.com. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keys are here with you on this Friday morning, live from our Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Game Nashville studios, keeping your home feeling comfortable all year round. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. So, Joe, we kind of closed out the show yesterday discussing the way that free agency could affect the draft board for the Titans. And with Kirk Cousins signing with the Atlanta Falcons, we've talked about teams maybe trying to jump ahead of Atlanta if they're interested in the quarterback market, be that a J.J. McCarthy or whoever else, to jump in front of Atlanta. Maybe the Titans could be a good trade partner, and you could move down if you're the Titans. Well, now that Atlanta has Cousins, you would think that Atlanta is probably out of the quarterback market as it relates to their first-round pick this year. So maybe that changes things up for the Titans that way. And then another development last night as Keenan Allen is traded away from the LA Chargers to the Chicago Bears, which, look, you hate to play this game, Joe, because it usually something gets shaken up in this process. But I even saw Dane Brugler last night tweeting about this. I mean, it's pretty easy to connect the quarterback dots to the first three teams here with Chicago, Washington, and New England. And after that, it's pretty easy to connect the wide receiver dot to Arizona, now LA, and with the Giants. So it could be a scenario if it goes straight chalk like that, where the Titans are going to have their pick of whatever tackle they want at number 7 without having to worry about it. Again, it's March the 15th, so a lot of things can change between now and then. But that's the Keenan Allen move yesterday makes me view the LA part of this a little bit differently too.
Yeah, it's hard not to let your mind go there. Excuse me. Someone on the text sounds like, you sound like you woke up 2 minutes ago. I said, I woke up 4 minutes ago. However, that was after a nap after our 4-hour pre-show meeting.
Izzo was bringing it today, man. He had passion in the meeting.
He's pumped. They got a big win over Minnesota yesterday. They're about to get destroyed by Purdue today. So he's I think he wanted to put more energy into this job than into that job, because Zach Edey's going for 40 anyway on him. So, but yeah, look, Dane Brugler, as soon as that trade was announced, like somebody announced on Twitter, and Brugler quote tweeted, it was like QB, wide receiver, wide receiver, wide receiver. There you go. You guys,
yep,
that's it. And look, I think right now it's clearly the most likely, as you said, someone could get in there and upset the apple cart. But if that happens, to me, then it's very simple. You are sticking at 7, and you are taking who you believe is the best left tackle on this board, and just prosper from there. That's it. It's kind of boring. Like, it's not as exciting as last year when, it's like, ooh, do they want Stroud? What are they going to do? And all this stuff. But I think sometimes simplicity is a great thing.
Well, it is interesting now from the standpoint of like that fourth quarterback, whoever it's going to be, who's going to make the move to get him, because the Atlanta part of this, I think, really complicates things, because had they not signed Kirk Cousins and then shipped off Desmond Ridder, you would think, well, they'd certainly be in the quarterback market if they weren't able to figure that out in free agency. And let's say Kirk Cousins went back to Minnesota. Well, now obviously he hasn't. So, I mean, you look around the Titans. I mean, do I think the Giants could use another quarterback? Yeah, but they just signed Daniel Jones to all that money, so that's probably not happening this year. I mean, Minnesota for sure in the quarterback market. Denver for sure. I would put the Raiders in there too. But which of those teams, like, where would you have to move up in order to get one of those guys if you're one of those teams? Because Atlanta, I think, is out of the picture. So are you then trading maybe with Chicago at number 9, who's already presumably taken Caleb Williams at that point? The Jets
Probably
need an offensive tackle at number 10, so I don't see them being totally interested in moving around that much, because they really need offensive line help, even though I'm sure at some point David Bakhtiari will end up on the Jets, and the ghost of him will play left tackle. We'll see what happens there. But just trying to identify where that quarterback move is going to come from, I think probably Chicago at 9 makes the most sense now.
Yeah, well, the Packers may need a Secret Serviceman if Aaron Rodgers is going to be VP. So,
he's with the Jets now. He's not my problem anymore.
I guess it would probably be an offensive lineman anyway, right? Probably get an offensive tackle, biggest guy you can get. Yeah, I think that's I think you nailed it. I mean, Chicago to me, now, yeah, who knows? I mean, maybe Chicago's like Brock Bowers. Let's go. Let's load up for Caleb and Justin. And Justin is now a slot receiver. But yeah, I would say that would be probably the most likely team to bail out of there, and that's probably around where one of those teams would want to. I'm sure one of them will. And look, again, I'm probably not. I'm probably higher on JJ McCarthy than some people are, but I still get wary of like fourth QB in a draft, and well, we need a quarterback, so let's move up and let's
Right.
just hope. I mean, this guy is not as good as the other guys, but maybe he'll be awesome too. I feel like
Well,
that's
some
just
people think
a
Drake May is
recipe
going to
for
slide
nonsense.
down, which I still don't know that I believe. But some people think Drake May is going to be a big slider here in the draft.
Is there anyone? So I've seen Chris Sims. I think it's Sims
Sims is
who's
definitely
thinks
one.
he's
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah.
Is there anybody credible who thinks he's like is that's going to happen?
I don't, not that I've seen,
It's just
but
him, right?
it's just weird conversation around him. Like it feels like one of those classic, you get to the draft and it's not the same situation as CJ Stroud last year, but it's similar. Like there's all this talk about Stroud and the S2 and Stroud, he could slide. And then he ends up going number 2 in the draft. And you're like, okay, well, all that was a bunch of crap. That's kind of how I feel like
Right.
it's going to go with Drake May.
Yeah, for sure. But that was like at least there was, even though it was misinformation, at least there was a reason,
Right.
I mean, like I know that you can. I mean, I've watched enough Drake May at times. Like, ooh, man, that's a bad pick. So
Yeah.
he's not perfect, but God, he's yeah. I think he's definitely going to go in the top 3. I don't think there's any question. Like, I got to see somebody other than Chris Sims who's down on him. Chris Sims, who I know that at one point he put out like, and this is whatever. Oh, I was big on Mahomes and all this stuff. I'm like, first of all, give me the audio of you at the time talking about Patrick Mahomes for the draft. I need that. Also, I do know that 2 years ago or 3 years ago, you were like, Zach Wilson is amazing. Now he wasn't alone on that, so I guess you got to be fair with that one because a lot of people were doing that.
Titans legend, Chris Sims. Let's get it right.
Is that right?
Yeah, man.
I didn't realize that.
I think he was on like
How long was that cup of coffee?
I think he was on like I don't think he was ever actually on the team. I think he was there for like a preseason.
Okay. Oh, good to know. Yeah, I mean,
Sure, I could find like preseason tape of Chris Sims slinging the ball around for the Titans.
Just a little hot takey. Just seems like he's a little bit like trying to be noticed with hot takes, but I could be wrong. It just kind of seems that way from afar.
So if it plays out this way, let's say it goes Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, 1, 2, 3 to Chicago, Washington, New England. And then the next 3 are Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors, Roma Dunze to Arizona, LA, and the Giants. I mean, that leaves you Joe Alt if you're the Titans. That leaves you Fashionow if you're the Titans. Is that a good scenario? If the choice of those top 3 receivers is taken away and it is clearly a tackle pick, which I think it's probably trending towards clearly a tackle pick anyway at this point, but is that a good scenario for the Titans if that's the way things shake out?
Did you just call him faster now?
I don't think so. I think I said Fashionow, but
it's Fash new, right?
Fashionew, whatever.
We might need to know because that's my pick. That's my pick. So we have
baby
time.
hands.
Yeah, I don't care. I think
a lot of people talking about that right now, by the way.
The baby hands.
Yeah.
Yeah, and look, I'm not upset either way. Like I said yesterday, sometimes it'd be nice if like someone else just took one off the board. It's like, well, okay, we're going. This is where, and this was always our guy. Whoever's left for you, this was always our number one. But hey, if you actually have the choice, we'll know. We'll know their evaluation, and I just feel like after you look at everything, I mean, the hands would be like the one knock. It is kind of interesting to be that big of a dude and have baby hands. But I mean, again, you give up no sacks, and even though the Big Ten, I mean, the Big Ten does have the national champion. It's not great across the board. The pass rushers at Michigan, Ohio State alone, that says something to me. So, I think he's more polished than people give him credit for. But yeah, it's one of those two, right?
Yes.
I mean, unless you're Mike Mayock and you're going to take like the 8th tackle on the board to show everybody how smart you are.
Well, you could do that. I mean, look, I think it's a good situation for the Titans. I think they clearly are going to have to take a left tackle. As much as I love the idea of a Roma Dunze or Malik Neighbors in here, but you have to find a left tackle at some point. And I know there's still, and I've seen this still from Titans fans of even after Ridley. Well, just take either a Dunze or Neighbors if they're there. Get you a left tackle in the second round and let Bill Callahan coach them up. And I get that line of thinking. I think I subscribe more to the give Bill Callahan an elite prospect to work with and see
Yeah,
what that does for you and how I guess polished that player can become with him as their coach.
exactly. And look, we don't know the Titans evaluations, and it may be closer than Um, yeah, maybe closer than like the mock draft land has, where it's like these two guys, I mean, we know how it's slotted that way. Titans may have a different evaluation, but yeah, I think you have to go there at that spot. You go with the absolute best talent you can go with. Speaking of Callahan, Cushenberry, in his comments this week, I assume Ridley will talk today. That would be my assumption, but Cushenberry went right to why'd you come here? Bill Callahan.
Yep.
So yeah, he's a recruiting. I mean, Bill Callahan is like a loaded collective in the SEC, man. He's a recruiting boon.
He is 615-737-1025. Our phone number 615-737-1025. More of your thoughts on the Titans, how free agency has impacted the draft board. We'll take your thoughts on all that on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Jared Stillman coming up at 7 o'clock. All that ahead. Robby and Rexrode 1025, 1063. The Game.
Hey, folks, Joe Rexrode here. Going to talk to you a little bit about FanDuel Sportsbook. Uh, this is a great time of year, of course. You can put the ball in your court for the rest of this season. It's heating up. We're getting toward the playoff push. And new customers for FanDuel get $200 in bonus bets if you have a winning $5 bet. $200 if your bet wins, $5 bet. Of course, you can do a lot of different things. You got the quick bets. You got your live same game parlays. You got player props and more. I've said, one just big picture bet I'm looking at. Look, I think the Celtics are going to win it all right now. So sadly, I think that's going to come to pass. But we'll see. I think if we had a Celtics Nuggets final, that'd be pretty good. So visit FanDuel.com/Joe102. Make that first bet a layup. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Must be 21 or older, present in Tennessee. First online real money wager, only $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued is now withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. See terms at sportsbet.fanduel.com. Gambling problem, call the Tennessee Red Line, 800-89-9789.
Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser. Nick Keyser feeling himself a little bit. Well done, Nick. Way to go.
Yes, I always try to feel the mood.
You did well.
Thank you, sir.
Rexrode, do you like this song?
Why do you ask? Because I'm old?
Well, you just yes.
I mean, not really. I actually kind of hate this song.
There.
I just thought it was funny that we're playing this song, but actually, I rather hate it. Thank you. I think Nick knew that.
Add one for the rant.
I mean, it's better than Creed, okay?
Easy. Come on. Yeah. Come on. Friend of the show.
Scott
Mark
Stapp and Paul
City.
Feinbaum. Love my name.
What a combo. Mark from Ashland City on the text line. I 100% agree that the obvious choice is left tackle, but I just can't get over the elite touchdown scorer versus elite non-touchdown scorer quote, and that brings me to Brock Bowers. I'm honestly wondering how they view Bowers and Chig as well. This from Mark in Ashland City on the text line. I've made no secret about it, Joe. I love Brock Bowers, and if they drafted Brock Bowers, I'm sure there would probably be people that had a problem with that. I would not be one of those people. I'd say, yep, I get it. You think that guy's going to be an absolute stud at the NFL level for a decade. So I would understand it. I'd be surprised at this point if that's the way they went. But how much consideration would you give to that? Let's say it plays out the way we just threw out their last segment, and the first 3 picks are quarterbacks, and the next 3 picks are wide receiver. How much consideration would you give to Bowers at 7?
Look, I mean, I get it, and I'd have to be tempted. And if I'm in that room and I mean, based on what I see, yeah, the guy could be absolutely ridiculous. So I would have to be tempted some, but I mean, like in that room, it would have to be like there's just no doubt this is going to be like one of those tight ends we talk about 10, 15 years from now, like, Tony Gonzalez and Antonio Gates and Travis Kelce. That's who this is. So you can't pass up the opportunity for that. It can't be, man, he's going to be really, really good, and it's just hard, it's hard to know exactly. I think he's amazing, but unless you are convinced that it's that, then you have to go left tackle to me.
Santa in Portland says, here's an idea I've not heard, and maybe because it's a bad idea, but subsequent to the moves they're made inside the receiver room, is it possible that they would go tackle at 7 and 38? One, I guess left tackle at 7, right tackle at 38. I think that's way more possible today than it was this time 48 hours ago.
I think it's always best available if you can do best available, but you also you can't just go independent of need. And when you're a team that has needs that are so severe in some spots that the most important people on your team could get hurt if you don't address them, then I think need creeps up a little bit. I think second round is best available. It could be a receiver, could be an edge. If you get your left tackle in the first round, it's like there's our starting right tackle right there. And now this offensive line is completely redone. And with Cushenberry, Skoronski coming on, and these 2 tackles, this is going to be one of the great lines in offensive. I keep talking all this hyperbole as they sit in the draft room. But long story short, sure, if you think that that's the best player available and it's your starting right tackle for the long term after you got your starting left tackle for the long term, okay.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think best available is a boring answer, but it's the one that should be the case. Like that should be what they do, right? At both spots, right? If you think, I do think need creeps in at 7. Like you got to find a left tackle, and hopefully one of those tackles is the best available, or at least close to it at the time. That makes your decision pretty easy if you're the Titans. I think certainly as you move into the second round, where you've already signed Calvin Ridley, so it's not like, receiver is still a need in my opinion, and I said that yesterday. I'd still be looking heavy at receiver. But if you didn't go receiver at 38, it's not the end of the world when you do have Calvin Ridley in the fold now. So I think best available really comes into play there, where You've addressed, I think, your need in the first round at left tackle. And then whether it is an edge, whether it's, a wide receiver, whatever that is, a right tackle, whatever that is at 38. By the way, I mean, I don't know who's playing alongside Jeffrey Simmons right now because all these people keep getting signed. Armstead goes yesterday to Jacksonville. There's a big hole on the
Reader
defensive
goes to
line right now.
Lions.
Yeah, Reader goes to Lions. There's a big hole on the defensive line right now that they're going to have to get filled somehow, some way, Joe.
Absolutely. I mean, to me, the way now that you may have to deal with that is like someone mentioned, like Tavondre Sweat in the second round yesterday. I mean, you may have to think more along those lines. Again, like, I mean, best available does have to be a guiding principle, but Jeffrey Simmons without Autry, without Tart, and not bringing in any of these guys, these top shelf guys, I'm sure there'll be some kind of moves there. But yeah, you may really have to look at that in the draft.
How about this one? Robert from Spring Hill says, do the Titans have anything they could use possibly to get Chicago's 9th pick in the draft? The way you could get someone like Bowers and the left tackle, similar to what Houston did last year in the draft when they moved up and they got Stroud and Anderson back to back. Now Houston had a lot of draft ammunition. The Titans do not. So I would think that'd be pretty unlikely, but that is an interesting thought from Robert.
Yeah, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Like, I don't think that there's a veteran trade that you'd consider or they consider. I mean, I guess anytime we talk about that with the Titans, it's Jeffrey Simmons,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, I guess you could like offer up your first and 25, and the Bears could be like, well, they are going to stink this year, so that looks pretty good. But I'd be surprised if you could pull that off. I mean, it'd be great. That's the thing with the Texans, like you said, Robbie. I mean, look, the whole Watson thing ended up being really good for them because they had all kinds of draft capital to throw at people.
They did. And that was even higher in the draft with 2 and 3. So I mean, that was
Yeah.
a lot of expense. Like the Titans they don't have the ammunition, right? I mean, they don't have enough ammunition this year. I mean, they don't have a 3rd round pick this year that they're currently dealing with. I just can't see them getting into a scenario like that. I mean, the trade back scenario is interesting with collecting more picks. I just wonder who that's going to be now with Atlanta, you know, getting out of the quarterback. Like the quarterback market, you needed Atlanta to be a player because somebody needed to be scared to death of trying to get their quarterback before Atlanta. And now that Cousins is there in Atlanta, that kind of gets taken away from you if you're the Titans.
Right. I mean, I think it's the Raiders, Vikings, Broncos are all together, and they're probably all jousting to get Chicago's pick, which probably is going to work out real well for Chicago. I'd imagine that'll probably juice up the market pretty well. But yeah, I think the Titans are sticking. But again, with everything the way it is played out, with the Chargers, I think going receiver, staying at 7 is the move. I think.
I think so too. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Coming up next, we'll be joined by Jared Stellman. We'll get his thoughts on what the Titans have done to this point in free agency. Make sure you're tuned in for that. Join 1025-1063 The Game and Guinness for Pinewood Madness Patio SEC Watch Party today. 1025 The Game will be broadcasting live from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Stop by and enter for your chance to win tickets to see Green Day. You can also showcase your skills in Pinewood Social's arcade basketball game competition, win tournament tickets, and watch all the televised games on their jumbo LED screen. For more details, visit thegamenashville.com/events. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063 The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Friday morning. And we welcome in our friend Jared Stillman to the program on a 102.5 The Game phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Jared, good morning. How are you?
I'm super. How are you guys?
We're awesome. I need you to explain to me your hatred for Mason Rudolph and how we got to this point. What do you hate most about the Mason Rudolph signing?
I think there are two things. Number one, I think that over his long, illustrious career, it has been well determined that he stinks. And I also don't take like a 3-game sample size where the Steelers eked into the playoffs last year, because Mike Tomlin always ekes into the playoffs every year. And I don't use that as I would not use that as an example of how he's turned a corner in his, again, long and illustrious career. I wouldn't view it that way. And not only that, while the backup quarterback position is not as important as, say, I don't know, right tackle, it is important, especially in today's NFL, because starting quarterbacks get hurt all the time, especially your starting quarterback. So I hate the Mason Rudolph signing. I think he's terrible. I think Mike Tomlin has dumped him every opportunity that he's gotten. You know, he was the backup to Ben, and then Ben went down with the elbow injury, and he came in, and he stunk so bad that they benched him and put in Duck Hodges, who was also terrible. And then when Ben came back, he went back to being the backup. Then Ben left. They drafted Kenny Pickett, but they also signed Mitch Trubisky because they didn't want him to be the backup because he was terrible. Then Trubisky went in, but Trubisky was terrible. And so then they finally went back to Rudolph. They won a couple of ball games, and now he's your backup quarterback. Oh, I know it's
the spin job you're doing on this is amazing. So they chose Mason Rudolph over your freaking MVP pick, Jared, Kenny Pickett. They chose Mason Rudolph to be their starter over your MVP. I mean, I understand he's I don't want Mason Rudolph as my starter. But do you understand that backup quarterbacks aren't good?
No, backup quarterbacks are good. Joe Flacco is a good backup quarterback.
Joe Flacco, a guy who a year ago everybody's like, please never come back to the NFL, and now he's hey, he did a good job last year. He did.
Right.
So that's
Joe
what.
Flacco
so
can
it's
throw
Flacco.
The ball. Mason Rudolph cannot throw the ball. And again, it would be one thing if you were one of these teams that had like that great franchise quarterback, that if something happens to the franchise quarterback, like go ahead and quit the season anyways, right? Like what happened in Cincinnati last year. But you don't. You have an injury-prone second-year quarterback that none of us know if he's any good or not.
Tell me how many teams, Jared. Tell me how many teams. Because I understand what Flacco did last year. Good for him. He also was with the best defense in the league and all that. Tell me how many teams out there are like, well, if our starter gets hurt, we're fine. QB2 is right there, and we're a playoff team. Tell me.
I will say this. In my lifetime, and Robbie, I think you would – the Titans have had –
You're going to bring up Neil O'Donnell now? You're going to bring up Neil O'Donnell? Okay.
Well, I mean, the best Titans team got to the – well, I don't think it was the best Titans team. I think the team the year after that was the best Titans team, but O'Donnell was also the backup quarterback on that team. But Neil O'Donnell started 4 games in 99 at the very beginning of the season and went 3-1 as a starter. The second best Titans team, or the second best Titans era, had Ryan Tannehill as the backup quarterback. And when they decided to make the switch, they ended up in the AFC title game. So I don't want to, backup quarterback matters, especially in today's NFL where you don't get to practice anymore. So the offensive lines across the league are horrible. Thus, starting quarterbacks get hurt all the time, and your starting quarterback gets hurt all the time. So whoever the backup is has to know, hey, I'm not competing for the job. It's Will Levis's job. But when Levis gets hurt, if Levis gets hurt, then that backup quarterback needs to go in there and not freaking stink like Logan Woodside. And I think Mason Rudolph is closer to Logan Woodside than he is to a good backup quarterback.
Look, I'm not saying it's not important.
Just point out, Mason Rudolph's 8-4-1. 8-4-1 in his career. Just throwing it out there.
I've seen him play pretty well.
That's a Tomlin stat because,
spin everything.
Do you think that the Steelers? So the 2019 season, when Mason Rudolph came in for Ben and got benched for Duck Hodges. And the Titans still needed them to lose to the terrible Jets the second to last week of the year in order to make it to the playoffs, to get to the AFC Championship game. You think that the fact that Mason Rudolph played in like parts of 2 different seasons, as much as Tomlin's tried to get rid of him, and Mike Tomlin's never had a losing season, no matter what the circumstances is, you think that that is more of a representation of Rudolph than it is Tomlin?
I think that Mason Rudolph is not someone I'd want to start at quarterback. I think he's just fine as a backup quarterback. I mean, yeah, you'd love to have a situation where you get a Tannehill, and that situation is what it is. Your 4th-round pick for Tannehill
until they matter. Backup quarterbacks do not matter until they matter, and I think we learned that the hard way. Like I thought that one of the stupidest things, and I'm not going to say it's the stupidest, because I think that Caleb Farley might be the stupidest thing that John Robinson did. But one of the stupidest things that John Robinson did before the 2022 season was make Malik Willis the backup quarterback. I mean, you were at practice. I was at practice. I watched him throw the ball away on 4th down of a 2-minute drill against the Arizona Cardinals. And I'm like, he's not ready. Like, you cannot put him in a game. And it was like, well, if the backup plays anyways, then it doesn't. And Tannehill rolls his ankle, and all of a sudden, you're out there at Kansas City on Sunday Night Football, and if you had any competent quarterback play, you win that football game. But the whole reason that you were in that spot was the arrogance that the Titans had that, oh, well, it doesn't matter if backup has to play, blah, blah. And, like, Mason Rudolph was the 3rd-string quarterback for 90% of last season. And that was a guy who had been there for, like, 7 years. And it's not like the Titans are paying Mason Rudolph so much money that if they didn't want him back, they couldn't have brought him back. They didn't want to bring him back. I mean, Tomlin's dumped him every chance he's gotten. So I'm supposed to think that Tomlin's trash is my treasure? No.
What do you make of the Calvin Ridley signing in terms of how that could affect the draft plans for the Titans, and also the impact that he could have on the offense now pairing up with Hopkins and Ridley as your 1-2 punch at wide receiver?
Well, I mean, I like the Ridley signing from the standpoint that he can run. And so with Will Levis at quarterback, I mean, I think that they need guys that can run and that can get out on the outside, can get open, and that, Levis can bomb the ball down the field too if he gets any time in that pocket. I mean, I think like that Texans game is a really good example of it. Now, Ridley did drop the football a little too much for my liking last year, but that Texans game last year where Levis got hurt early on was a good example, where Levis throws the most beautiful pass in the NFL, and it hits Traylon Burks square in the hands, and he doesn't catch it. And Ridley is going to be the guy who needs to catch that for $24 million or whatever it ends up being. So I think that, like, the Ridley signing affects the draft plans because the Titans had to get speed at receiver, and I think that without Ridley, they had to get it with the 38th pick. Hollywood Brown, I wasn't a huge fan of. Gabe Davis, I wasn't a huge fan of. I thought they were going to go slot in free agency and speed in the draft. Instead, they went speed in free agency. So I think that maybe affects their draft plans, that now they can kind of pick whatever at 38. I still expect them to grab a receiver in the draft. And because of that, I think there's a pretty good chance they're going to try to trade Traylon Burks and pick up a 4th or a 5th or a 6th or something like that.
Yeah, it won't be a 4th. Alt or Fashnu?
I mean, Alt. Fashnu's got those little baby hands.
Joel's all over Fashnu. He wants it.
Well, I mean, here's the problem, though, with the baby hands. Like, if we're to say these guys are even, and I don't think they are. I mean, I think that Alt is a little bit more developed at this point than Fashnu is. But if they're even, then I think that Alt wins out just by the measurables, right?
I would say so.
It's close, but yeah. Look, I think the measurables are close. There's some measurables that are in Fashnu's favor. Fashanu is, man, he's been really, really good. I have no idea. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I can evaluate him. Jared, you go with PFF grades now. So, I mean, by the way, speaking of PFF, so that's your thing, right? Like you're doing the PFF grade thing. That's like this is your thing now. Like I'm going to base this whole off season. I'm going to go with PFF grades. Is that right?
To rank free agent offensive linemen, yes. I am not going to sit there and watch Oakland Raider tape, or excuse me, Las Vegas Raider tape of Jermaine Illuminor, so I can then sit there and talk about Jermaine Illuminor on the radio, only for Jermaine Illuminor to sign somewhere else 5 minutes later.
I just want to make sure that you're aware of Aaron Brewer's PFF grades, which are quite good. I mean, like how do you reconcile those things? The fact that you were leaning on PFF and yet they very much.
I was putting the boards together. I was like, Aaron Brewer would rank higher than Tyler Biadasz of the Cowboys, and every time I just ignored Brewer and I just crossed him off the list and I didn't look at it all. I mean, I'm sure there's some. Good system. I mean, look, here's the thing that's crazy though, is that I will freely admit that I'm doing this because it takes too much time to watch the tape. To watch the tape of every player, every position, which is the job of the people that do it, that just takes too much time. You know, I'm doing 4 hours of radio during the day. We got hockey, basketball, other things going on. So, I'm just not going to do it. I'll take PFF at their word. And I have said that this is like training camp. You know, I went to training camp. I thought Burks and Chig were going to have good seasons. And now I've decided I don't give a rat's ass who does well in training camp this upcoming season. And if Kenneth Murray is a superstar, because PFF says Kenneth Murray is horrendous, if Kenneth Murray is a superstar, then I'll probably never use PFF again. As of now, we're going to go with it. The thing that I will say, though, is I bet you there are some, either coaches or general managers that are doing exactly what I do because they're lazy. Not all, but some, probably the bad ones, that are just oh, yeah, we need a right tackle. All right, well, let's go look at PFF, see how they rank them. What do we think about this guy? I truly think there's probably some of that in the NFL, which is incredibly disheartening.
That's pretty stupid. That's dumb.
You don't think there's anybody in the NFL that's doing that? One lazy ass that wants to be home
do other. Their entire job is to evaluate players, and they get paid a lot of money to do it. No, that's ridiculous.
You don't think there's a single guy like Mike Reinfeldt who wants to be home for dinner at 6 o'clock every night?
Even if that's the case, Jared, you still have 8 hours when you're in the office. What else are you going to do? I mean, this is your whole job.
You guys act like you've never worked with somebody who's cut the ultimate corners and thought to yourself, dude, this is your job. And it's nah.
I mean, your brain today is on one. You're getting clowned on the text line for your Mason Rudolph take two, which makes me feel good.
I could give a rat's ass. Mason Rudolph sucks.
Jared, have yourself a wonderful weekend. I hope you enjoy the basketball.
To Mason Rudolph for winning 3 games at the end of last season. I'm sure, they probably beat the Ravens resting everybody. And yeah, it was the Ravens resting everybody in the rain. And some Scarbini team. And everybody, Mike Tomlin can't get rid of this guy fast enough every opportunity he has. And now all of a sudden I'm supposed to think that, if something happens to Levis, knock on wood, we're fine. Yeah, okay. You go, Titan fan. You don't even have a right tackle right now. And it's oh, no, we're going to have a top 10 offense this year. Might want to get a right tackle first. Thanks, Robby.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody's basing that top 10 offense thing on Mason Rudolph.
Jared,
nobody's basing it on Mason Rudolph. But I'm basing it not being a top 10 offense right now on no right tackle.
So why do you care if the backup stinks? You're going to stink anyway.
Because they have time to get a right tackle, which they need to do, but also because backup quarterback is important. So what do I know? This team cares about backup running back more than about backup quarterback.
One thing I know, if you two did a show together, you'd never get a break, ever.
That's a good point.
We'd never beat a break, ever.
And by the way, you never mention how many in a row I've won over Jared. You always do if he's been winning. I'm just saying.
He's kind of ugly, though.
I wanted to get right into Mason Rudolph because only you two could make a Mason Rudolph conversation last 15 minutes. Way to go.
What the hell is wrong with
That is
me?
way too much Mason Rudolph today.
Give
me the alarm clock when Come back, Nick.
We'll react to what Jared had to say there. Coming up next, you're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keister here with you on this Friday morning. Brought to you by Chuck McDowell and Medical House Calls, Middle Tennessee's best medical care in the comfort and safety of your own home. For more information, go to medicalhousecalls.com. Medical House Calls, where the nearest clinic is your home. Joe Rexrode's long fuse never on more display than when Stilly's on the program with us. A great conversation about Mason Rudolph. Stilly got a big problem with Mason Rudolph. I will say, as I pointed out, Joe, 8-4-1 in his career. He's done some winning when he's been given the opportunity. Wins are a quarterback stat now.
Yeah. I'm not saying he's great, but I've seen him play football several times, and he was fine. I've seen him play football several times, and he was not as good as Joe Flacco at Joe Flacco's best. I mean, Joe Flacco went on an absolute tear, won a Super Bowl. Joe Flacco last year was really good for a stretch after he was basically cast off and he was done in the NFL, sitting on his couch. So good for him.
In fairness, he was cast off by the Jets, and they may just be total morons. But
well,
yes.
That's true. That's true. And then Flacco also had one of the worst quarterback performances I've ever seen in the playoff game that they lost. But yeah, as someone points out, like Mason Rudolph only played for 7 years for Mike Tomlin and got 2 contracts out of him. That's a terrible job by Mike Tomlin of desperately trying to get rid of him. Oh, God.
Hey, I respect it, though. Who do we think Stilly really wanted? Was it Flacco? Is that who he wanted?
I meant to get to that, but he wouldn't stop yammering. But I think so, right? I mean, everybody loves Flacco. Hey, look. Obviously, Flacco up to his market, so I get it. But I assume it was Flacco.
Look, I'm mad that Mason Rudolph is here, but I'm mad that Mason Rudolph is here because I wanted Jameis really badly for entertainment purposes.
Yes.
I did, and they didn't even go that route, and it made me very upset. And now he's in Cleveland.
Yeah, that would have been amazing for us. I don't know how amazing it would have been for the Titans. You know, does backup quarterback matter? Yes, of course it matters. And yeah, like the Titans do have those examples that Jared gave us. I mean, the Tannehill example is also taking a flyer on a guy when you're at a different timeline with your starter, and you may be thinking, okay, it might be time to move on. You know, I mean, the Titans have had various levels of backup. When they had Castle, it wasn't good enough. When they had Gabbert, that was an upgrade. Still wasn't good enough, but they still almost won the win and end game against the Colts. And Rudolph, if you line them all up, when it's all said and done, the smoke clears, we'll look at the backup quarterbacks. You know, we can rank them. I'm guessing it's right around the middle of the league. You know, the bottom 10 to 12 is like guys you're like, oh, who? Oh, he's still in the league? Oh, what? You know, it's pretty bad. It's hard. You can't find 64 good quarterbacks in the world at any point. But I think it's fine. And next year's team, obviously, they hope to be good. They've done some things to be good. But I don't think that they're in a situation where it's like everything, when the Titans had that defense going, I do agree with Jared on Malik Willis. That's where you need a guy like, well, to me, Mason Rudolph, but a guy who can, go with the defense and cobble together a couple wins. I'm not sure next year's team is that team.
Who would you rather have, Mason Rudolph or Josh Dobbs?
Dobbs for sure. I like Dobbs better. So, I mean, I'm not
Mason Rudolph 8-4-1, Josh Dobbs 3-11, baby.
Well, I didn't realize that. Well, never mind. What are the PFF grades? That's what that'll be the determining factor.
I did enjoy the Aaron Brewer part of that. I
ignored that one, but everything else, let's go PFF. Top 3, let's say, in any organization in the NFL who just say, nah, I'm not going to, let's just go with the PFF grades.
Well, I can never discount the Raiders and what they might do, but no, I don't think that.
It's such an interesting view of the world.
We'll have more coming up next. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. 615-737-1025. Preds back in action tomorrow, taking on the Seattle Kraken. They got teams that are chasing them in the playoffs that continue to win. We'll get into that. and what is required for the Predators down the stretch. You're going for game number 14 in a row with at least a point tomorrow in Seattle. More on that coming up next. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Friday morning. It is that time of the year, time for tournaments here in basketball. The NCAA tournament right around the corner, and it's time for you to sign up and play the official 102.5 The Game Bracket Challenge, brought to you by ESPN Bet Sportsbook, Twin Peaks, and Volunteer Hose and Gasket. All you got to do, go to theGameNashville.com/bracket challenge or the 102.5 The Game app and sign up for your chance to win 4-day passes to Bonnaroo. Brackets open up after the teams have been selected coming up this Sunday, so make sure you get in on that. Preds back in action tomorrow, Joe, taking on the Seattle Kraken on the road, going for game number 14 in a row with a point. It's interesting, Vegas loses last night to Calgary, and Calgary right now is far enough out of it where I don't know that you're necessarily worried about them at the moment if you're the Predators. But Vegas, now only one game in hand on you, is 3 points back. So that's a big result last night for the Predators in terms of the wild card 1, wild card 2 race that you're in with Vegas at the moment. But the Minnesota Wild, they keep on winning. They win again last night. St. Louis won the other night. So you're 7 points up on the Wild, and now you've drawn even with them in terms of games played. So the Wild, I wouldn't say they're breathing down your neck, but they're hanging around in the playoff race here. And John Hines and the Wild apparently got some momentum after that big decision he made against the Predators, Joe Rexrode. What a job by Johnny Hines.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man. I mean, how could it, if we're going to give all the Preds credit to you too, I mean, I'm much more comfortable giving the Wild credit for this hot streak to John Hines and his gutsy call. How about that? How about that, Hinesy? Can he still win Coach of the Year?
Well, maybe so. Come down the stretch here, get some votes in that way.
By the way, is Brunette a legit contender for Coach of the Year?
I think he should be. Now, I don't know that he would. I don't think he's going to win. I think Rick Tocchet is probably a runaway winner here with what he's done with Vancouver and that team. But
that's been a total lock for a long time. But
yeah, I mean, I do think. Let me put it to you this way. I think you could make a really good case, especially if they continue going here and they get in the playoffs. You could make a really good case that Andrew Brunette should at least be a finalist, and I have my doubts that he will be. But I think, look, he's done a heck of a job, and I think we've gone over, the way he thinks the game, his system, all those things. I think he's a really good coach. And that's why, going back to like after the Dallas game when they got shelled, some of the conversation around him was just so stupid that it drove me nuts for about 5 days after that. I think most people have come around now to realizing how stupid that conversation was. And he's a really good coach. He's done a really good job. And I think the system that he's implemented, you're starting to see the benefits from it. And look, not only that, I think there was some work that had to be done to get messaging through to this group clearly, and whatever they've done, whether it was the U2 concert, if you want to point specifically to that, or whatever you want to call it, but they found a way now to, whatever consistency they've been preaching and looking for all year, they found it at this point. So I think he deserves a lot of credit.
Yeah, no, I mean, he should certainly be up there and be discussed, and it's been a heck of a job. This team, I think overall, it's overachieving given the overall talent level. Maybe I'm selling the talent level a little bit short. I mean, but even the high level talent guys, I feel like they're, we've talked about Yossi, right? And kind of like the system adjustment, all that stuff, and now how he's playing. But I feel like the guys with the high level talent in this team are being pretty close to maximized right now.
Yeah, for sure. And there is a concern. I've heard from some Predators fans about this of like, are they peaking too early? Like, are they going to go on some cold streak by the time the playoffs come around? And maybe, I don't know. We'll see what happens there. But I like not only the results, but the process and the way that they're playing. I think it's probably, I'm not going to say it's more important than the results because it's not. But the process and the way that they're playing lead me to believe that this is not some gigantic fluke out there, right? Like, I still don't believe that the Predators are a Stanley Cup threat, and I don't think that the Predators are one of the, upper echelon teams in the NHL. But I will say, like, when you roll off a 13 game point streak, it's hard, especially when 11 of those are wins. Not a whole lot of fluke goes into that. Like fluke goes out the door about 5 or 6 games into it. When you start to get to 13 and 14, you're doing a lot of things really well. And for the most part, I mean, you could point to probably 1 or 2 games here throughout the stretch where this hasn't been the case. For the most part, the most encouraging thing to me about it, Joe, is they've had the puck for most of these games. They've been the better team in most of these games, and they've gotten those results. It's not like they've been, hanging on for dear life, and UC Saros has had to make 45 saves for them to win most of these games.
Exactly. Yeah, this isn't like, because I do feel a little bit like the vibing run they had under Heinze there may have been a little bit more Saros carrying the load. But I could be putting too much on that. They played really well. I mean, you have to play well in a number of areas to be able to put together a streak like this. But this does seem like, if you compare this to that, this seems a little bit more like real and sustainable and representative of what the team is.
I agree. And Andrew Burnett's talked about it. When you're playing his system the right way, you're going to have the puck. And I mean, the first 2.5 periods the other night, and again, I know Shifley was out. That's still a tough place to go into. Like, that's a tough place to walk in there to Winnipeg with the way they've been rolling this year. And not only to win, but they kicked their butt. Like, they kicked the crap out of Winnipeg the other night until it was late in the game and it was kind of garbage time. But they beat the absolute crap out of the Jets the other night. And that was a little, I mean, it wasn't like Colorado game eye-opening, because I think on this stretch, when they handled Colorado the way that they did, that was when I was like, whoa, like this could be something here. The Winnipeg game, I don't know, was that, but going on the road and handling them the way that they did, they just look like a really confident bunch right now. And I don't know how far that's going to carry them. I don't know what that means come playoff time, but their confidence is, I mean, it's palpable. You can see it with the way they play right now.
Yeah, no doubt. And look, it's just, we talked earlier in the show about, the Vols and Vescovy. It's still whatever percent of the game. It's way more than 50, so you have confidence in each other. You said you've used the word connected. I mean, I think that's a good way to put it. If you play this system and you're in the right spots and you have confidence in where others are going to be, and remember, they've filtered in a couple new players here at post deadline. But when that's the case, and you can play that well, I really like the system. I really like the philosophy behind it. It does at times seem a little bit gambling, and it can cost you, but ultimately you can play some dominant hockey if you play this right, and that's what they're doing. So we're talking ourselves into a run to the conference finals at this point on WHMR.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not getting into, cup contender stuff and all that stuff. I will say though, like, Winnipeg is a plausible first round opponent, right? I mean, they went in there the other day and they beat the crap out of them. Colorado, a plausible first round opponent. Obviously Vancouver, a plausible first round opponent. They're going to be the underdog if they play against any one of those teams. But I guarantee you, and this is going to start happening over the next couple of weeks here as we get closer to the playoffs, people are going to be breaking down like potential playoff matchups. And there's always like that one section, whether it's on ESPN.com or The Athletic or wherever, of teams that you don't want to play heading into the playoffs. I guarantee you the Predators going to make a couple of those lists of, nobody wants to see any part of the Predators right now, which is a good spot to be if you're the Preds.
Sure. I mean, especially if they're close to this level for another month. They got basically a month, right, of hockey here.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much. I mean, if they don't have, if they're going to play like this or close to this, then absolutely. I mean, that means they're going to be, probably, I would assume they would have the best record in the NHL over that period if they sustain this, and they will absolutely be one of those teams.
Your Red Wings are falling apart, man.
They're toast.
They've lost
two losses to Arizona in the last 5 days or whatever.
They've lost 6 or 7 in a row, and now they've fallen out of the playoffs to the Islanders. What's going on with your Wings?
They're not my Wings. My Wings, are from back in the day. But it is funny how Like there was so much. All of a sudden, it's like they've arrived. Yes, this is it. Get behind this team. I mean, it was like all this stuff, like right before they just completely fell off a cliff. I
They
mean,
were
it's
playing really
amazing.
well, and now they can't beat anyone. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Coming up next, it's time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode. You can check it out every morning here on the program. We'll do that next. Teron Davenport at 8 o'clock. All that ahead. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Hey, Robbie Stanley here. FanDuel's putting the ball in your court for the rest of the NBA season because right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 if your bet wins. All you have to do is bet on the NBA with a wide range of bet types. They got quick bets, they got live same game parlays, player props, and a whole lot more. I've been telling you about the Celtics all week. I told you to keep an eye on that TNT game last night, and they crushed the Suns. Keep going with the Celtics. I think they're on a mission this year. My beloved Miami Heat put them out of the playoffs last year, and I think that's fueling them. So you can take it any way you want to take it. Just visit FanDuel.com/Rob and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel.com/Rob. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. You must be 21 or older and present in Tennessee. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Got a gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment, let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robby and Rexrode.
I'm going to give you crap for the rest of your life.
Which apparently may not be that much longer based on yesterday morning. So
Look, man, I don't want to be that guy, okay? I don't want to be that guy, but I'm gonna be that guy, okay? The network's called It Just Means More. You can't call your Wi-Fi network It Just Means More and make all this progress and get these flowers and then not have the freaking Wi-Fi work. Can you?
It is that time of the day. Time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode. You can check it out every morning here on the program. Joe Rexrode, the floor once again is yours. How was the Wi-Fi yesterday at the SEC tournament?
It was better. At one point, I think I tweeted something like, hey, all right, we don't have to retract our story about the SEC, becoming a good basketball conference. But then it got bad again. I had to switch to the Preds. Now, I switched to the regular media Wi-Fi we use for Preds games, and it was fine, so okay. But Cal Tucker was having all kinds of issues over there. So then we were talking about, all right, do we need to rewrite this story and talk about, how the SEC actually has a long way to go. But today, by the way, I'm going to talk more about Greg Sankey and the SEC. Right before I head over to Bridgestone and eat a large media buffet they provide to me for free and sit on press row and cover their basketball tournament, which I'm very excited about the basketball today. I'm very, very I'm very worried. I'm very worried and I'm very concerned. And I'm just I really have an issue here with Greg Sankey in particular. And I will go to a Pete Thamel story from yesterday, ESPN.com, about the NCAA tournament. It's a very well done story by Pete, kind of going through all the different iterations of what a tournament expansion would look like. So again, we've talked about this before, and honestly, this is probably going to become a perma rant until it does or doesn't happen, or I just die in my sleep. Obviously, the expansion of the tournament itself, we're getting to the point where like the bracket will be like Indiana Jones, like all right, looking for the ark, like putting the map out on the floor,
Yes.
like a game of Twister. Okay, Janie, you do the Southwest Mideast region over there, and I'll do which is ridiculous. But the big thing is this Power 5 idea, and basically the idea that without anybody saying it out loud, that they just want a Power 5 tournament, which would be absolutely atrocious. And again, they don't want to say it out loud, but I want to read this quote from Greg Sankey to Pete Thamel, ESPN.com. He said, quote, "Nothing remains static. I think we have to think about the dynamics around Division I and the tournament." Sankey then goes on to mention UCLA, first four to Final Four in 21. Syracuse, first four to Sweet 16. He mentioned those two. Okay. These are two examples he came up with. This is his quote. Quote, "That just tells you the bandwidth inside the top 50 is highly competitive. We are giving away highly competitive opportunities for automatic qualifiers from smaller leagues, and I think that pressure is going to rise as we have more competitive basketball leagues at the top end because of expansion," end quote. This quote should freak everybody the hell out who loves the NCAA tournament. Freak you the hell out, because what he is saying is that, hey, look at UCLA. Look at these teams. We're giving away these opportunities to, let's see, UMBC, which beat number 1 seed Virginia. Fairleigh Dickinson which beat number 1 seed Purdue. I could go on and on about mid-major, low-major, one-bid league teams that came in and made huge runs. I could go on about how last year in the freaking Final Four, we had FAU and San Diego State, Greg. Are you kidding me? I really didn't want this to turn into me just screaming in a microphone again. The Midwest Conference, the WCC, CUSA, as Bo Conley points out, all made the Final Four, okay? You had a Metro Athletic Conference automatic qualifier make the Elite Eight. We had St. Peter's. Was 2 years ago. The Ivy League, the Summit, the Missouri Valley have all gone to the Sweet 16. It's an incredibly disingenuous spin from Sankey, and it's very concerning because they will kill the tournament. If you take out the little guy who has this amazing opportunity and these moments that to me are the most memorable moments of all time of following this tournament for more than 40 years, and you turn it into let's get the sludge from the lower regions of the 18-team football league and throw them all in there, you killed the tournament. So I know I keep talking about Greg Sankey killing various things. This is absolutely concerning. And all I can think to do is keep complaining about it. I mean, he needs to be asked about it if he talks here this weekend, and it can't be talked about enough. It can't happen.
Well, we all want to see Georgia in the NCAA tournament this year. That'd be great. Just give me some Georgia.
Well, again, right, and that's the thing. This is where, among so many things that are wrong with this, mainly just the killing of why it's great and why we love it. This is the number one. It's just casual fan, and you're one of them, Robbie. You don't follow college hoops closely, but you get into March Madness. And are you telling me that you don't love those stories? I mean, I think everybody does. And they attach them. People attach themselves to these stories. I mean, the thing that they're totally, in my mind, overlooking is yes, those are bigger fan bases. You know, obviously your football fan bases, and if you have an 18-team league, by golly, well, we better get 12 of them in. Those teams, those fans don't like those teams. Georgia fans are glad. Good. I don't want to watch you anymore. If you get to the point where you can be that sub mediocre, and you're still part of this tournament, talk about devaluing the regular season. Think about what that'll do. It's atrocious.
Well, we've reached the point. It's not like this hasn't been there for the most part the whole time, but we've reached the point now in college athletics where money is the only thing that matters, and that's what the decision is made of. And that's why I'm scared to death of the NCAA tournament. I mean, Joe, we're, I think, hours away of college football playoff being officially to 14 teams starting in 2026. So we will have gone of not even having played a 12-team playoff yet immediately to 14. And we all know what that means. It's going to get to 16 at some point. We've talked about that. So we've arrived at the point where people who are more concerned about the financial part of this and making decisions that way and less concerned about the games and the good of the game and the good of fans around the country are making these decisions. And it's a tough spot to be in because look, you hear those things from Greg Sankey. You see what's going on right in front of our face with the college football playoff. They're going to screw up the tournament. It's going to happen. Like, I have no doubt in my mind that they're going to screw up the tournament. And it's a really sad situation to be in. They've already screwed up college football, and I have no doubt they're going to screw up college basketball here pretty shortly.
Well, they're certainly going to expand it, and that's to probably at least like 76 or something like that. I will say the encouraging thing, Thamel story. I mean, there can't be too much of this stuff. Krzyzewski, Dan Gavitt is a vice president for college basketball, and he, there are a lot of comments to their extent like you cannot do this. So I mean, it's not happening without a fight, and there are really important people who are very against it. So that's the encouraging thing for me. At least the idea, like you cannot take Cinderella. It's an absolute crime. And David Arkansas says, why not rant about the 14 teams? Yeah, well, we've done that, and we will again. It's comical, no doubt. And of course, the SEC and Big Ten have made it so that they will get more money, and so they will continue to widen the gap. So what you said is exactly right. That's the only consideration.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'll take your thoughts on all that. Teron Davenport, ESPN NFL Nation Titans reporter, is coming up next. We'll get TD's thoughts on what the Titans have done in free agency to this point and maybe what still could be left to do out there for the Rand Carthon and the Tennessee Titans. That's coming up next. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
ESPN's Turon Davenport, Talking Titans, now on Robby and Rexrode on ESPN 102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
It is that time of the week, time for our friend Turon Davenport to join the program here. ESPN NFL Nation Titans reporter, host of Talking with TD on our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. TD, good morning. How we doing?
Hey, good morning. What's going on, fellas?
Not a whole lot, man. TD presented by ESPN Bet Sportsbook. It's been a really busy week for the Tennessee Titans. Lots of moves that Ran Carthon and company have made. The big one, of course, being Calvin Ridley. So let's start there, TD. Number one, what do you make of that contract, that move by the Titans? And number two, what do you think Calvin Ridley brings to this group at the wide receiver position?
Yeah, I think he brings a lot as far as the wide receiver position. Sorry about that. He brings a lot because you look at what this team needs. They need a playmaker in the passing game. They just need playmakers, period. So he's going to fill that role. And you also look at just the versatility. He is a guy that can play on the outside or in the slot. So you add that to a guy like DeAndre Hopkins who could do the same thing. And then you have Treylon Burks on the roster as well. So now you can move things around and set up matchups that are favorable for your offense. You got that. As far as the contract's concerned, hey, listen, you want a top-level free agent, you got to pay a premium price. That's the way the business goes. So Ran Carthon and the crew, they got together and they decided that he was worth the money. And, I think you look at the deal, it's actually not that bad, right? It comes in just above where Terry McLaurin is at. So I think, they're on a similar level. And considering that this contract is signed 2 years later, I feel it's a good deal for them.
Yeah, and you can basically get out after 2 years if it doesn't work out.
Exactly.
I think the deal's fine. I think the Titans have done a lot, TD, obviously, to address the offensive side of the ball. Do you look at this now? We see the Chargers moving Keenan Allen. It seems to be, and we also see, there's probably not going to be, now that the Falcons have signed Kirk Cousins, it seems to all be lining up for the Titans to stick at 7 and draft the left tackle. Is that how you see the whole picture at this point?
I don't know, man. There's a lot of ways that it could go. Obviously, Joe Alt, if he's there, he's a guy that you have to strongly consider. But look at the Chargers, right? They traded Keenan Allen. They got, Quentin Williams on the roster. They released Mike Williams, Quentin Johnston, rather. So maybe they go receiver. Maybe they don't. Maybe the Giants go tackle. Maybe they go receiver. There's so many ways that this draft could go. But then what about a guy like Brock Bowers, right? Do you take him at 7? Maybe not. But what if you bump back a little bit, right? You get one of these teams that wants to move up to get a guy like a Rome Odunze, right? And then you could flip picks and then be able to get Bowers later. Or, you look at other options as well, like Troy Fautano, Talis Fuaga. These are all guys that they could get a little bit later. J.C. Latham. These are all guys that they could get later and acquire another pick to be able to do something else. Because guess what? They're going to have to draft a defensive tackle at some point now, right? Because you consider, they wanted to get DJ Reader. Eric Armstead was another one. They're going to have to find somebody to be Jeffrey Simmons running mate.
TD, there were some Titans fans that were fearful of them not spending money this free agent period. That has certainly not been the case. They have spent money and they've made some additions. So what do you make of the activity level that we've seen from Ran Carthon and the Titans? And what do you make of the moves overall that he's brought into this point?
Yeah, I look at it this way. It came like in spurts, right? The second day of free agency was a little – Titans fans started to kind of gather on the bridge and get ready to jump, right? You look at the Texans, they were going crazy, and the Titans weren't doing anything, and then boom, you get the Mason Rudolph and then the Calvin Ridley one. So I think what they did was do a good job for the most part, filling an assortment of needs. But you got to understand, you can't do all of this stuff that's required to do in 1 year. This roster was chock full of holes. So you can't plug everything up in one off season. I think they did a good job. You still got the draft, and you still got some other things in free agency. So I think overall it's solid.
So if you're right, TD, and I was talking about that earlier, it might have to be a DT, at 38. I guess to me, it's like if they do get their left tackle with the first pick and, they stick it with their picks. I think a best available makes sense at 38, whatever that may be. But if it were a D tackle, Austin from Clarksville has a question. Byron Murphy, Braden Fisk, Tavondre Sweat. How would you look at those three guys and compare them to each other?
Man, those are three names I really like. But I'll tell you, I'll go with Big Sexy, Tavondre Sweat. And you look at him, like, he's a guy, he played basketball in high. He was actually a really good hooper. He was a power forward. But you look at just at that size and what he does as far as being able to occupy gaps. Getting DJ Reader would have been perfect to put next to Jeffrey Simmons. So why not get a younger version of it, so to speak, like a bigger guy? And Tavondre Sweat, I would go there. But I tell you what, man, I really love Byron Murphy. He's a penetrator. He's a guy who, is going to be an outstanding player as well. You look at Fisk. Just a couple years ago, he wasn't even on the path to getting an invite to the combine. Now we're talking about him as a possibility at the 38th pick. And let me say this. That dude is an athlete. You saw what he did at the combine, but if you go back to the Senior Bowl, after the last practice, they let the big dogs kind of run routes and cover each other, and that dude was looking real smooth with it. So when you get a big athlete like that, it's always good to have, and he got a motor on him.
TD, what do you make of the Mason Rudolph move at backup quarterback? Stilly very upset about the Mason Rudolph move, but what do you think?
Yeah, listen, Jesus could come and make steak and eggs for Stilly, and he's going to find, it was too runny or something. You know what I mean? Like, he's never going to be happy, and that's fine. That's fine. But if you look at this move, you're getting an experienced backup quarterback for less than $3 million. I think that's a good move for what it's worth. And that's the thing. You have to look at it with context. They're not bringing Mason Rudolph in to push Will Levis for the starting job. They're bringing him in to be a veteran, reliable player that if something should happen, he could come in and in a pinch help you out, but also be someone that's in that room. Remember last year, Ryan Tannehill was someone who had input in the plays that were up and down. And he and Levis, along with Tim Kelly, they would together look at what plays were up and down. That's the type of role that Mason Rudolph could have. There's nothing wrong with having a veteran quarterback. He doesn't have to be the Nick Foles type of backup. I think it's a good move, especially at that price.
So when I have these usually winning arguments against Stilly, a lot of times TD he'll text me, which I appreciate. I hate though. It's like sometimes I won't see it. Like I'm on the phone and then I won't see it till later. Like you texted me. I got him TD today on the Brewer PFF. He's going PFF, but not with Brewer. That one doesn't count. But I will say you brought up the point on Kenneth Murray, and you had a really interesting point about that, which was basically that in his scheme it didn't work. If you take a knife, use it as a fork, you're not going to get the best results. But I'd like more from that on that scheme, this scheme, and what you think he could be for the Titans.
Yeah, well, if you look at Brandon Staley, it's always zone. A lot of times, cover four they're using, and the linebackers, they want them to read and react and, drop back into zone coverage and those type of things. And that's good for certain linebackers, right? Certain backers have that skill set. But Kenneth Murray is the type of guy where you say, hey, look, man, all I want you to do is see the ball and go get it. He's an aggressive downhill player. You heard when Terry McCormick asked him, hey, what are some things, some characteristics? He said straight up, fast and physical. So when you have that, why not allow that guy to do what he does best? And I think if you look in this scheme that Denard Wilson is likely to have, just going back to his roots, right? When you look at a guy like, Greg Williams, right? This is someone we know that he was always attack. You look at Todd Bowles, blitzkrieg. Like there, he's sending the backers, he's attacking. That's the exact way you want Kenneth Murray to be playing. He is not the guy to be having drop back into zone and things like that and reading pass patterns, combos and stuff like that. That's not the way that you use him. So that's why I said if you take a knife and try to use it as a fork, you're not going to get the same results. So, yeah, PFF numbers, for whatever they're worth, mind you, teams in the NFL don't use the ratings. What they use are the charts, right? The grunt work. Okay, I need to see how many times Calvin Ridley lined up in the slot. That's what they'll use it for. They don't use it to say, oh, you know what, PFF said Kenneth Murray's not good, we're not going to sign him. There's this thing called projection where you look at a guy's skill set and you say, okay, how does that match this scheme, what we want to do? Oh, you know what? It matches. So then you sign him.
TD, last thing for you. Number one, what do you make of the fit for Derrick Henry in Baltimore with the Ravens? And number two, what do you make of what the Titans have done at the running back position to replace him, bringing in Tony Pollard?
Yeah, I think Derrick Henry's going to be a great fit. I think you look at him and how his physical style of play, we know the deal, right? Fourth quarter, that's when he comes to effect. The Ravens need to be able to put games away, and he will allow them to do that. I think having Lamar Jackson in there and how you always have to have that defender, keeping an eye on him, like when they, you go play action off a stretch. If you don't watch that boot on the backside, he could take off and go 60. So that's going to take another defender out of the play for Derrick Henry. So I think it's a really good match. Yeah, they run out of shotgun a lot, but I guarantee you that they're going to have Lamar Jackson under center. So I think it's a great fit. It fits the personality, too, of that city, of that organization. They'll be in good shape. As far as Tony Pollard, you look at he and Tajay Spears, who I'm sure you guys saw, he changed the number to number 2. Those guys together. Yeah, what's going to be cool about that is now Brian Callahan, it doesn't matter who's on the field, right? You could call your offense. You don't have to say, oh, I need this package, right? We got to get Henry out. Let's get Spears in because we're going to do this, this, and this. You're not as predictable. You're more versatile. And don't get it twisted. Tony Pollard runs behind the pass. Like, he's a physical runner when need be. So that's something else. And I think that tandem is going to be pretty solid for them. I'm not saying, like, they're going to be top of the world and combined for 2,000 yards, but I think they'll be effective.
DD, great perspective as always. Really appreciate you taking time to be with us this morning and tell us about our friends at ESPN Bet Sportsbook.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's ESPN Bet Sportsbook. It's now live in Tennessee, and it's the official sportsbook of ESPN. It's where you can find daily exclusives and offers with your favorite ESPN personalities and shows. If you sign up today as a new user, you get $100 in bonus bets for making any sportsbook bet. You get all your favorite markets, bets like in-game wagering, cross-sport parlays, teasers, and all the props you can handle. That's ESPN Bet. Download that today. You must be 21 or older and here in Tennessee. For gambling problems, support, call or text the TN Red Line at 800-889-9789. And as always, terms and conditions do apply. All the details are on the app.
We'll react to what TD had to say about the Titans and free agency coming up next. Take your thoughts as well. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Friday morning. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by Chuck McDowell Medical House Calls, Middle Tennessee's best medical care in the comfort and safety of your own home. For more information, go to medicalhousecalls.com. Medical House Calls, where the nearest clinic is your home. I got some tickets to give away to see Cody Jinks at Ascend Amphitheater coming up on Saturday, April 27th. Be caller number 3, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Caller 3 will win a pair of tickets to see Cody Jinks at Ascend Amphitheater coming up on Saturday, April the 27th, 615-737-1025. Appreciate TD for being with us in the last segment. It is at 38 now. There's a pretty interesting development in terms of the options the Titans have. As Jared pointed out, in my opinion at least, they still need a right tackle. So is that going to be addressed this offseason, or are they just rolling with what they currently have at right tackle? I don't think it's even debatable that they need defensive lineman help. I mean, they got to have it. And I don't know where you're going to get it. It's going to have to come somewhere. So maybe it's as simple as that at number 38 that you've just got to go get at that point. We'll see. Obviously, left tackle we've talked a lot about, and there's going to be plenty of options there in the draft for the Titans to get that. So some clear needs that are still left on the table here for the Titans. I do look at defensive line right now, Joe, and say, you know what? Harold Landry's coming back on the edge. That's great. Right now you got Arden Key on the edge too. You could use somebody else on the edge at some point in the draft here as well. But no question about it, with Danico Autry now gone, Tierra Tart gone from last season as well, you got to find a way to bolster that defensive line group. And the Titans apparently have been in on a couple of these guys, be that an Armstead, be that a Reader, with the interest level that they have. But those two guys specifically going elsewhere yesterday. Now the Titans are kind of up the creek in the free agent market as far as the defensive line is concerned.
Yeah, certainly the top guy's gone, and I thought that one of those guys would have been great, for them. And that is actually to me, it's a big signing for the Lions to get Reader, and I guess the Jags are mad at the Titans about Ridley, so they went and got Armstead. So
must have been.
I mean, it's been, these AFC South teams are out here doing some work. Let me ask you, is Tart out there?
I think so.
I mean, the coaching staff's gone, I think, of course, the problem there is the front office, Rand's still here. And so he remembers how that all went down. It doesn't sound like it was particularly good. And it's unfortunate.
He's apparently meeting with the Bengals.
Okay.
We'll see how that goes.
I mean, he's hurt himself. I think when he's played at his best, he's a guy who would be signed by now, if not for all that, whatever the heck all went down, which clearly he ticked off a lot of people in that building. But it's I guess you could look at it well, the people he was in conflict with Vrabel and Terrell Williams for sure. They're gone. So there's a guy, but you need to find another Tart. And then, yes, you need to draft someone for sure, without question. And, of course, TD's a hell of a resource on stuff like that, he had a great answer for those three guys that were brought up in the text line right away. There are some good players there, and that you've got to give Jeffrey Simmons help. He is not, he can't just be solo in there. And Danico Autry has done a lot of good things to help him in the last few years.
What about the edge part of it? Are you comfortable going into next season with the edge rushing group that they currently have, or would you like to see that bolstered via the draft coming up here next month?
Yeah, I'd like to see it bolstered, but just like TD said, there's just going to be some holes that go either basically unaddressed or very cheaply addressed. So somewhere along the way, there's going to be some lower level free agent pickups with some of these spots. And, once you get past the fourth round, and again, this is another thing about the draft now that I think is a really good point for people to keep in mind, which is NIL, which is, these guys who are, third year players in college who were okay, well, if I can get drafted, then I'm going to go. But if they're really good in a Power 5 college situation, getting good NIL money, then they're not coming out, And so I think your late round picks, I think that's gotten that's gotten weaker. So you just, you got to make some choices, and then the draft, you're just going to be taking some flyers on guys. So right now, I'm going to guess edge and interior. At least one of those is going to be like, oh wow, they really didn't do enough there.
Caleb on the text line asking about Derek Barnett. What do you think of Derek Barnett as a possibility?
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, that he's one of those guys who, I mean, I love Derek Barnett as a college player. He's a fantastic college player. I was my brilliant talent assessment. I think I absolutely wrote it in the Tennessee, and he will be a better player than Myles Garrett. Very good, very good. Keen eye for draft talent. But,
I said the same thing. I can't say anything.
Yeah. I mean, he's had a disappointing career, but he's fine. He can play a little bit. I mean, it's something like that where, and I understand the name recognition there and people remember how great he was in college, but I mean, that's a low cost, potentially low impact ad.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. Coming up next, it's time for weekend winners. Preds back in action this weekend, the SEC tournament here in Nashville. We'll get to all of that and more. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game.
It's time to pick some winners. We hope. Robby and Rexrode have weekend winners for you. Now
On ESPN.
1025 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
It's time for weekend winners here on Robby and Rexrode. Lots going on this weekend. Preds back in action against the Kraken coming up tomorrow. The SEC tournament here in Nashville all weekend long. We'll get to all of it and more here on today's edition of Weekend Winners. A standings update in the competition. Nick Keyser, Joe Rexrode, both 2-4 last week. Keyser with no lock, Rexrode with his lock. I went 3-3, no lock, which brings the overall standings. Nick Keyser, 10-8, 1-2 on his lock, good for 11 points. Joe Rexrode, 9-9, 2-1 on his locks, good for 11 points. So tied atop the standings. Robby Stanley, 9-9, 1-2 on my locks, good for 10 points. So very close competition.
Woo.
3 weeks into it, which I would hope it would be at this point. With that in mind, we begin with today's action in the SEC tournament. Mississippi State taking on Tennessee. The Vols are a 9.5-point favorite on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Nick Keyser, you're technically in first. Who you got between the Vols and Mississippi State? Vols favored by 9.5.
I do like being in first. I'm tied with Joe. That's perfectly fine. But, Joe, I'm hoping to pull away from you this week, especially after him leaving me hanging out to dry on Tuesday, by golly. All right.
He's bringing it up again. He's all over it.
That's okay. But
It's fine.
tonight, I say the Vols minus 9.5. I think they're winners. So give me the Tennessee Volunteers.
Joe Rexrode, Tennessee, favored by 9.5.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in team that plays one game the day before, and then the team that comes in cold. That team that has just played a game in an arena in one of these conference tournaments, a lot of times you see a really good performance. A lot of times you see an upset. I don't think we're going to see an upset today, but I do think it's going to be a very good game. Tennessee's going to have problems with Tolu Smith down low, and he's a type of big man with the kind of physicality that can give Adu trouble. But Tennessee will win a closer game than that, so give me Mississippi State.
Going with Mississippi State plus the 9.5. I will go with Tennessee. I think they shoot the ball really well today. They're disgruntled with their performance against Kentucky, and they take it out on the Bulldogs today. So I'll go Tennessee minus 9.5. The game following that, Joe Rexrode, you're up first in this one. Auburn and South Carolina. Auburn favored by 7.5 points on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Who you got between the Gamecocks and the Tigers?
Same kind of idea here. I think South Carolina, I think they have a really good chance to win the game outright, but I'm definitely going to take them and the points. I mean, Auburn is Final Four good when they play well. So it'll be that's one of the games I'm most interested to see today. But I love South Carolina's toughness. I love their size and physicality, and Michie Johnson at point guard. So give me the Gamecocks.
South Carolina wins outright. Give me South Carolina plus the 7.5, and they're going to win the game. I think. I just think the physical play today. I don't think Auburn's going to shoot very well. So South Carolina wins by 3. Write it down, Rexrode. 3-point win for South Carolina today.
Nice.
Nick Keyser,
Wow.
South Carolina, and Auburn. Auburn favored by 7.5.
So is
I know
it
you're going Auburn.
too good to be true that all three of us want to take the Gamecocks? I mean,
Wow.
I think this is a really fun matchup for sure. Now, Auburn's given a lot of teams trouble this year, but give me the Gamecocks. I really like that line as well. Robby, I tend to agree with that close game. I don't know if it's going to be by 3, but I do like the
points.
Gamecocks in this one. So give me South Carolina as well.
You're a big Auburn guy.
Yeah, what are you doing?
Why? Why am I a big Auburn guy?
I don't
Am I not? Am I wrong about that?
My brother
Yeah,
goes to
you're
school
right.
there.
That's what I'm. Okay,
Okay.
I'm not totally crazy. All right, never mind. Fine.
I knew you were
Move on.
connected to Auburn somehow. Preds and Kraken coming up on Saturday night in Seattle. I'll start on this one. I think it comes to an end on Saturday night. The point streak comes to an end. Seattle can be a tough place to play, and this is a desperate team that they're playing. So I go with the Kraken to win and end the point streak for the Predators on Saturday night. Nick Keyser, you're up next. Kraken and Preds on the puck line.
Yeah, it's been a while since they've played at Climate Pledge Arena. And they've not won there since 2022. I mean, they've only been to that arena. I think this will be their 4th visit tonight. So I don't think the streak ends, and I think the Preds do pull out a win on Saturday before they come back and play here on Tuesday.
So Nick going with
roll.
the Preds. Wow. You going with the
Preds
Preds?
roll.
Yep.
WHMR. Preds roll. I'm with Jared. He's the greatest. coach, GM combo in history of this team's winning the cup. Preds win.
Wow. So I'm taking the Kraken, Keyser, and Rexrode going with the Preds against Seattle coming up on Saturday night. We move to the individual portion of the program. Nick Keyser, your first individual selection.
Sticking back in the NHL, it's a big one tonight for Winnipeg. So give me the Jets. They're -1.5 over the Anaheim Ducks. The Ducks will probably give them some trouble, but I think Winnipeg does come out on top.
I'll just go ahead and tell you, give me the Jets -1.5 against the Ducks and lock it down. They're going to win by 4 goals tonight. Jets -1.5 lock. Joe Rexrode, your first individual selection.
Wow, a lot of Jets love today on weekend winners. Okay, I've got my lock too. St. John's, big win over Seton Hall. Rick Pitino's got them rolling, and my goodness, they're excited. Playing UConn today. UConn -9.5. UConn lock. Absolutely trash Pitino's squad today. UConn is scary good.
UConn -9.5 against St. John's. Rexrode locking down on that pick. Rexrode, go ahead with your second individual selection.
All right, coming back to Nashville for this one. Texas A&M, Kentucky. Kentucky -5.5. Texas A&M beat Kentucky. Texas A&M's guards can cook to the extent that they can beat anyone on a given day. But I just have to go with BBN here. I just have to go with that team minus the 5.5, and it was close to my lock too, but it's not my lock.
I will go with my beloved Miami Heat -8 against the Detroit Pistons. Not necessarily because I have a ton of confidence in the Heat, but the Pistons are terrible. So give me the Heat -8 against the Detroit Pistons. Nick Keyser, your second individual selection.
Western Kentucky was able to take down New Mexico yesterday, so I think they continue their winning ways today back in Huntsville, Alabama. They're taking on the MTSU Blue Raiders in the semifinals, and I'm going to lock down on this one because I feel better about this one, and WKU lost. I think it was a 1-point game in Murfreesboro. So that's a tough loss, and I think they come back for vengeance. And by the way, the Hilltoppers are favored by 5.5 against these Blue Raiders.
So you're going Western Kentucky -5.5 against MTSU and locking down on that selection. Nick Keyser, go ahead and fill us out with your final individual selection.
Back here in Nashville, I'm going to take the Alabama Crimson Tide -3.5 over those Florida Gators this evening.
Well, with Alabama -3.5 against Florida. Joe Rexrode, your final individual selection.
Sounds like 100 miles of homer on that CUSA pick. I'm actually also, though, I'm going to follow suit exactly there with Nick on Alabama. Bama -3.5 against Florida. Florida embarrassed them last time out. I think Alabama goes nuts on them tonight. Bama -3.5.
-3.5 against the Gators. I will go with Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets -10.5 against the San Antonio Spurs. Nuggets starting to crank it up a little bit. I don't think they really care yet. I know Jokic doesn't really care yet, but I think San Antonio is bad enough where, other than Victor, who, by the way, is just an absolute freak,
yes,
they're going to destroy the Spurs. So give me the Nuggets -10.5 on the road against the San Antonio Spurs. You watched him play this year? Like,
have I watched the Spurs play?
Yeah, have you watched Wembanyama play a whole bunch?
Yeah, I mean, I've watched a couple games basically in their entirety. So yeah, I mean, he catches and shoots like a 6'1" guard. Once he and Holmgren both, and I don't know, maybe Holmgren will just never put weight on, but my gosh, they are freaks.
Well, I saw they played the Lakers a couple weeks ago, and watching like LeBron walk up to Victor Wembanyama after the game, and LeBron looking like a fifth grade school child standing next to him is pretty funny. Like it's pretty amazing how big that dude is.
Yeah, they're going to be, and here and there they've had like a really good performance, and he's just been amazing. Well, who'd they just beat? They just beat the Celtics.
Celtics. I think.
Oh no, Milwaukee maybe.
It was Milwaukee. That's right. Yeah, Milwaukee.
Yeah, and he went absolutely nuts in that game. So no, he's worth the price of admission.
So all of us picking South Carolina to cover today, it makes me a little nervous with South Carolina taking on Auburn.
Yeah, I just really, I'm surprised by that because Auburn is super talented, and frankly, I'm rooting for great games today, but I'll be honest, I'm rooting for Auburn. I want Auburn to be there Saturday, as much as I respect South Carolina, it's just way more fun to watch Auburn and Alabama and Kentucky and Tennessee play. so, so good luck, Gamecocks. Cover, but maybe don't win.
Of the, I'll change it to 3 because South Carolina Auburn, I think, is a really good game, kind of an even matchup. Of the 3 between Tennessee, Kentucky, and Alabama today, who should most be on upset alert in your mind?
Of the 3 of Kentucky, Tennessee, and you said Bama?
Yes.
Well, I'd say Bama. I mean, it's lesser of an upset, but that's a team that just kicked their butts.
Yeah.
And Florida should have won in Tuscaloosa too, by the way. So sometimes you just don't match up well with a team. I just have a feeling Bama's going to come out today and be, and just be on point and be hitting their shots. But I think definitely they're the most likely. I mean, Mississippi State can beat Tennessee. But it's going to take some of their support players hitting threes. They're a bad shooting team other than Josh Hubbard. So if that changes today, if those and their 2 stars play well, they could get it done. But I like the Vols.
We'll have our final segment coming up next. Look ahead to the weekend coming up here for the Predators in the SEC tournament. Your final thoughts on the Titans as well. Some questions to get to on our text line. We'll do all that coming up next. Make sure you tune in to the 94.9 The Fan this Sunday for coverage of the Food City 500 in Bristol. Coverage will begin at 1:30, race starting at 2:30. Coverage also available on the 94.9 The Fan app and at 949thefan.com. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Hey, folks, Joe Rexrode here talking about FanDuel, talking about the NBA season. It's getting down to the fun, and FanDuel's putting the ball in your court for the rest of this season because right now, new customers for FanDuel are going to get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Again, $200 if your $5 bet wins. You bet the NBA a number of ways. You can quick bets. You can do your traditional point spread or money line, same game parlays, and those can be chosen for you as well. Player props, all kinds of stuff. I would right now, I would be going, as Robby just mentioned, the Denver Nuggets, the Joker, the way they're playing, Jamal Murray, the way he's playing, that's a team that I'd be looking at to cover and for those 2 guys to get over on points. Visit FanDuel.com/Joe102. Make that first bet a layup. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. You must be 21 or older, present in Tennessee. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued is now withdrawable. Bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line, 800-889-9789.
Welcome back in. Final segment of the day. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Friday morning. Joe, some moves being made in the National Football League. Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network just put this out there. So the Vikings and the Houston Texans have made basically a draft trade. Minnesota moving back up into the first round with an additional first-round pick, getting pick number 23 and pick number 232 from the Houston Texans. In exchange, Houston will get pick number 42, pick number 188, and a 2025 second rounder. So Minnesota moving up and Houston collecting more draft picks for the future. So draft day trades with no players involved. Those are fun.
Yeah. Well, and how often do you see that kind of a trade happening like in March? You know what I mean?
Not very often.
It's a draft time trade, but interesting. So the Vikings end up getting another first rounder. Okay.
Well,
cool.
My initial reaction to this is they have another first rounder, which is great.
And they're going to use
also using to maybe vault yourself up to go get a quarterback?
Yeah.
I wonder if that's what they've got in mind here.
Are they thinking about really vaulting up? Trying to really load up and vault up? Like, is there anybody who? How high could they get? How high could they get in this draft? Who would be willing to bump down?
It's a good question. Like, if I'm Chicago and if I'm Washington, like, I'm drafting a quarterback where I am. I'm not trading with you.
Right.
I mean, I think I would say the same thing about New England, but maybe they view things differently. I don't know. Like, they're bringing Brissett in, so maybe they're comfortable going with, I don't know. But I would think that those three, if they love the evaluation of the guys that are there, and maybe they don't, but if those three love, the evaluations of the quarterbacks that they've looked at to this point, I mean, you can't move up that high, can you?
Well, right. That's the thing. It's like, so if the Patriots are there, and this is where, to me, we almost always see teams just go with the quarterback, when they're in a situation like this. But if it's Jaden Daniels or Drake May and you're sitting there and you're the Patriots, you're like, I just don't think that guy is the one. I mean, I know it's hard to punt on a season, which is what you'd essentially be doing, but that's where you get out of there and you load up with picks. I mean, you're in a bad spot right now with your roster, right? I mean, particularly on offense. And then you get out, and then Minnesota gets up and gets that. I mean, that's where the scenario is. But usually the teams just, all right, that's who's available, so let's go. Steelers, all right, baby hands, come on. You'll be the one first-round pick. It's that's where maybe this could work. But maybe it's just Minnesota trying to move up to, basically right behind the Titans now, to get like McCarthy or something like that.
Yeah.
Of course, that's the thing, though. They already have. What do they have? The one
11.
that they still have is 11. Yeah, so I guess it would be what? Move up? Yeah, I don't know. It's probably to do more than that if that's the idea. A lot of people asked about Chase Young today on the text line. I'm taking a flyer on him. I'm not opposed to it. I think that you've got to protect yourself and be careful with it. But he's a talent. I mean, there's no doubt. And this is one of those things where, like, in the past, I've seen the comparison of Vic Beasley to Chase Young. It's kind of like, well, how much does he like football? And he kind of faded and all that stuff in Atlanta. But Vrabel will coach him up. I mean, let's be clear, though. Like, the talent level between Chase Young and Vic Beasley is pretty different.
It is pretty different. Now, Kyle in Shelbyville on the text line says he'd give Chase Young a 3-year, $45 million contract with $30 million guaranteed. No, thank you. I would not do that.
It's a little steep. That's a little
steep. I think his agent would love that. His agent would be all over that.
Are you his agent, Kyle?
If that was the offer, he'd probably be signed by now. I would guarantee you that.
We may have Chase's agent on the text line. We also have like an unhinged Kentucky fan who's very mad at us for. I guess. Do we say Kentucky? Do we say Kentucky isn't fun to watch play?
I don't believe we
said the opposite of that. I think
we did say Auburn's more fun to watch than South Carolina, but apparently this person's very upset about that.
Yes.
Doesn't matter. Kentucky by 90, whoever they play.
Hey, easy now. These people have our number now, and they are all over this town. So I'm just saying, tread carefully. Michelle can't save us from all the BBN, okay?
My name is Jared Stillman. Jared Stillman. That's what my name is. Come find me, Kentucky Nation. That's going to do it for us
Baloney
today
head.
here on the program. Joe, have a wonderful weekend at the SEC tournament.
Certainly will. Very excited.
Jason
Have a
Big
good
Joe's
weekend.
coming up next. You're listening to 102.5, 106.3 The Game.